Hello, everyone. I am Laura Sheehan, and this is An Empowering Perspective, an inspiring interview to ignite your inner spark. Today, I am thrilled to be joined not by one, but two incredible guests, Sapna Welsh and Caroline Kersten. Together, Sapna and Caroline have co-authored two books, Worldly Women, the New Leadership Profile, which was written in 2013, and Women Leaders, the Power of Working Abroad, published in 2019. Not only have they written two books together, but they also founded Leverage HR, a boutique consulting firm that focuses on transitioning talented women to the top and developing and implementing solutions to create diverse leadership teams. All of their combined efforts explore how to fill leadership pipelines with more talented women by accelerating their development through a powerful approach, working and living abroad. Sapna is currently serving as the founding partner of Leverage HR. She is an entrepreneur, business executive, and certified coach with over 20 years of experience working in various sectors. Sapna builds on her own various professional transitions, ranging from corporate to .com to entrepreneur, and from domestic to international to coach and train diverse talent for professional fulfillment and success. Caroline, currently based in Switzerland, is working as the Talent and Change Management SME at Bayer Consumer Care. She is responsible not only for initiatives in these two areas, but also for diversity and inclusion. She is passionate about developing and implementing solutions that will bring people and the organization to a next level. Together, Sapna and Caroline have trained and coached countless leaders and consulted with some of the most notable Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 organizations, and NGOs across the US and Europe. Whether you are seeking to manage your career, find new sources of energy and focus, or want to improve performance and impact, Caroline and Sapna each focus on inspiring clients to understand their talents and leverage them to maximize their personal leadership and achieve their goals. I'm talking way too much. Welcome, Sapna and Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today we are spanning 3 time zones to bring this incredible interview to our great audience. Thank you both for being up late, Caroline, for taking your afternoon, Sapna, to be here today and to talk about your incredible combined initiatives.
Thank you for having us.
And I'd love to just start out this conversation by asking one or both of you to talk about how you came together. It's really unique that you were able to work together to publish not one, but 2 books and found an incredibly successful consulting business. Tell us how that all began.
Well, I'll go ahead and start us off, Caroline, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, it was about 2010, January. It was a pretty cold January, and my husband's role took our family to Bonn, Germany. And I had just launched Leverage HR a couple years prior to that. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks, to be quite frank, because I have 3 kids, and the youngest was 1. And the oldest was in 6th grade. And our daughter, who's in the middle, was in 2nd. And I realized it was going to be too difficult of a challenge for me to be able to manage multiple time zones and continue to deliver to clients in the US with my former business partner, with my kids being the ages they were. So off I went, and we went to Germany. And I, for the first time in my entire life, didn't work. So prior to launching Leverage HR, I have about 15 years of corporate experience with groups like Deloitte and JP Morgan Chase and Nationwide Financial, always in the talent management and talent development space with a keen eye on diversity and inclusion. And here I was without working. So what did I do? I threw myself into so many lessons. I kid you not, Caroline will back me up on this. I took German lessons, I took painting lessons, I took skiing lessons, I took tennis lessons. I even did a decorating cupcake lesson.
Whoa. And then you're like, hold the phone. That's the line.
Exactly. And I drank a heck of a lot of coffee. And I'm pretty darn sure it's at one of the many coffees that I was at that I met Caroline. And really all this coffee and all these lessons led me to think about two things. One, I really like what I do for a living, and it's why I had always done it. So I went about the business of getting my work permit. And I started training and coaching European managers to successfully expatriate to the United States. It was quite an effort and quite a feat. And luckily I had some folks to help me along that path. Two, I started to become really curious about where in the world are all the executive women, because it seemed to me that every lesson and every coffee I went to, the majority of people there, if not 100%, were all women. And me being me, I started to geek out on this a little bit and started digging into this. Where in the world are all the women? And what I discovered first and foremost is that working and living abroad is one of the, if not the most powerful development tool. And this was out there by groups like Corporate Leadership Council. That got me thinking even further. And I thought, well, how many women actually are in these executive roles? At the time, it was only about 17%. So I started digging yet a little bit further and toying around with, is there an opportunity to explore this further? And as I was toying around with it, pleasantly, I was introduced to Caroline. And I know Caroline's going to speak a little bit about how she stepped into it and where we went from there. So Caroline?
Yeah. Yes, so I moved to Germany, I think a couple of months before Sapna. I'm Dutch, so from the Netherlands, I'm a lawyer by education, moved into management consultancy pretty soon afterwards. And then when I got my first child, I changed jobs completely and started working in human resources as a consultant, as an advisor, as a manager, as a business partner, whatever the title of the role was. And then my husband got an opportunity to work in Germany. So, and I'm very much about countries and languages, and I've lived in Belgium and France before. And I was like, okay, we've been in the Netherlands for 10 years. Always wanted to move abroad, so let's go. But now we did with a family. We had 2 kids, and we moved to Germany. I quit my job, so the same as Sapna, I was in Germany without work, which was the first time in my life too. And I've been looking for jobs, but I wanted to work part-time, which in Germany is not really, well, not done, but it's difficult to find interesting roles in part-time functions. And I went to a lot of coffee mornings too at the international school where our kids went. And I had a friend, and she's this very extrovert and well, very loud and present, very nice lady. And she said, oh, Caroline, you have to meet Sapna because you are in HR and Sapna is in HR, and I'm sure you'll click and you have to go and talk to her. So that's how Sapna and I got introduced, and we shared our background and our experience, and we found out that we both were into HR and in talent development, and we both had this passion and affinity for getting more women in leadership positions. And then Sapna had the idea, or as she explained, about maybe finding out more about professional expat women. And we said, well, if international organizations, or many organizations, you don't even have to be international, business is very international these days. Even if you're small, you can sell with internet across the world. So whether you're in a global organization, international organization, or just do international business, the better you know the different countries and cultures and ways of working that come with it, the better you will be in your role. And so that's how we started connecting the dots and say, well, if we want more women in leadership positions, then we need women who have lived abroad, because that's the best way to really understand what differences are. You can read a book about everything that's different in different cultures, but it's everybody who has lived abroad knows it's different when you're actually there. And that's how we started researching about professional expat women and the percentages. And we thought it would be great if we could publish a book with practical tips for women who have the ambition to move abroad. What kind of skills are helpful, what kind of challenges they might face to be prepared, and also to help organizations support women and know how they can build their female talent pipeline by proactively making an effort to send their female talent abroad. And that's how it's all started. And during our research, I think we interviewed over 60 women from all over the world who, for all different kinds of organizations, from Shell to Fairtrade to care to, profit, non-profit, big, small, in every continent in the world. We even had one expat lady who'd been in Alaska, I believe. So it was a very diverse interview pool, and we had the craziest stories when talking to these women. It was interesting, all their experiences, but we had some amazing stories. So it was really good fun to do this. And I think after 1.5 years of research, we started writing and editing and more editing. And then in 2013, we had our book.
So many incredible and very valuable pieces of information coming out of both of what both of you are talking about in terms of your international experience. And what is striking me as I'm hearing you talk about, how you both ended up in Germany and then how you met each other, and the emotional and practical transformations that you were both going through at the time in terms of finding yourself in a new location, having chosen to support your partner in their assignments overseas, but then recognizing what a really deep impact that move had on both of you in terms of your professional identity, really doing some soul searching in terms of what was important to you and how to best move forward. And of course, the audience, the Empowering Perspectives community is exactly that demographic. It's mainly women who have chosen to follow their partners overseas to support their careers. And these women are highly ambitious, very educated women who, when they land in a new country, are able to build those great skills that you were talking about, Caroline, in terms of resilience and really experiencing the hardships and the challenges that come along with living overseas. And I love that the perspective that you're sharing is that experience allows them to more fully appreciate and incorporate the true nature of diversity and inclusion in their work and in their leadership. And as a white woman, I've been thinking a lot about this because moving back to the States sometime in the future, I have had the experience, I would say the unique experience of being the minority most of my life, which is something that most other, especially white people in America, don't have the opportunity to do. And I think that really has expanded my horizons and my understanding of how I can be a part of a team and how to make sure to make that other people are an active part of a team. Knowing that there are so many women out there who are still in this position where they are supporting their partners in their careers, and that they're going overseas, but not necessarily initially for their own employment. What advice would you give, either one of you, to these women who are not maybe right now in an executive level position? They're people who've chosen to take that step back to support their families, to support their loved ones, but they are overseas. How do they leverage those international experiences to continue to move themselves forward and to position themselves either to get into an executive level position while overseas, or use that experience to catapult themselves into the next position when they find themselves back in their home countries?
It's a great question. I believe one way to answer it is a very personal way, because Caroline and I both have taken these journeys ourselves. So there is the research and the writing of the book, which was a wonderful experience. All the dog and pony shows we got to do throughout Europe as well as in the US, sharing this information and the research, transitioning from book to business, running a very small firm that intimately understood diversity, as you so aptly described it, Laura, by having consultants and coaches that come from all genders and various walks of life, even to ourselves having experienced what it feels like to be the outsider, right? Really to be the minority, if you will. So yes, the research was amazing. The experience is amazing. And perhaps I can share my personal story, which is about 5 years ago. I had my opportunity to apply what we had researched and written about. And it was a true testament. Do these tools work? Do these skills work? Can I keep myself honest and use everything from a values assessment to applying some of the coaching practices in the book and the leadership skills that we use to elevate diverse leaders throughout the world? Well, it was challenging. It was so challenging. And yet, I would say that one of the biggest things I did was to forgive myself and to give myself grace during the transition period. And additionally, to have followed some of the mantras that we outlined, such as truly identifying what you value and how you want to repackage and reapply your skills, and having been honest and earnest in continuing to not just build my network, but maintain my network back in the US. And even through applying these 3 tenets, I was able to navigate these unknown waters, coming back to our old home in our old neighborhood. 5 years later, I know a lot of folks probably thought we were just on vacation. Sure didn't feel that way to us. And yeah, but did it with great confidence by being able to apply a lot of our experience as well as our research and our learnings, and have been quite successful in building out Leverage HR since then. Mentioned earlier that we do executive coaching and leadership development, and we've actually expanded not just into diversity and inclusion as it applies to developing women leaders, but developing diverse leaders and also going into the diversity strategy space. And most recently, I had a new partner join about a year ago, and we built out the change management space as well. So it's very much a success story, and I think Caroline's has been as well. Caroline?
Yeah, I think because if I reflect on, I really enjoy. As I said, I love different countries and cultures. I speak the languages, which makes it a lot easier to move, I must admit, than if you, like Sapna, go to a country and you don't understand anything they're saying because you don't speak the language. That's an extra big challenge, I think. But I always believed that it would provide great opportunities and great learning, and it has turned out like that. And I think it's you need a kind of open mindset to do that, or to at least enjoy it, because if you're not open for everything that's different and new, then you're gonna have a really tough time. Had I ever considered starting a business, a small business? Never. But I've learned so much. I've had so much opportunities. As I said, the interviews with all the executive women that we interviewed for the book, that was incredible. And it gives you a network all over the world in all different kinds of companies at all different levels and functions, which is extremely valuable. And through the work we did so much ourselves. It's where I learned to do workshops and training, and it's when I got my coaching. And so it's brought me so much development in areas that I'd never considered before, but it has been extremely helpful for me. It's really helped me develop as a person and as a professional. And then because 2.5 years ago, my husband's job took us to Switzerland. So I followed again. And I said, oh, we've been in Germany for 9 years. That's enough. Let's go discover Switzerland. And it was actually through my network that I got my job here. So it's you never know how things turn out. And I've always been open to, it's a bit contrary to what we preach in the book. We say active career management and know what you want and plan and see how you can achieve your goal. And I think my goal has always been to be open to opportunities and go with those. And so far it has always worked out really well. Yeah.
And Laura, if I can just also add some tactical steps for any of the folks in your community. I believe that for accompanying partners, let's say you aren't working where you are, to truly leverage your international experience, there are a few very pragmatic steps. One, yes, spend time to define your mission, your vision, your values. It's your guiding light. It's your North Star. Two, inventory your transferable skills. So I'm sure Caroline, Laura, yourself, transferable skills can be something as simple as figuring out how to get to the grocery, where to park, how to deposit a coin into a cart when you never had to do that at home, how to bag your groceries, whatever it might be. I have a funny story. There was a sign in German that I didn't quite understand when I dropped off my husband's shirts prior to coming back to the US for a summer break for a few weeks. And he needed to go into the office and he kept texting me saying, I don't know what's happening. The dry cleaners, there's a sign here. I don't know what it says. And finally, we realized that they were closed for a month and a half. So I dropped it off and lo and behold, no clothes. See, but that's a transferable skill. Created great agility. But there are so many of those transferable skills, real challenges, challenges in maneuvering health situations, situations with children, setting up utilities in a foreign nation, building new networks, building new friends, getting involved with the community, but really to inventory those. What are they? And I always like to call it creating something like a portfolio. You know how you would have an art portfolio if you're an artist? What are those transferable skills? What is my tangible proof? How can I demonstrate that? How can I really talk about the social proof and impact that those transferable skills made to me, my community, my life, and how they could create impact for a future employer or perhaps a future partnership if you're starting something on your own. Spend time thinking about what your personal brand is. So in other words, how are you unique in your portfolio? How are you unique as an impact? Or I'm sorry, as an expat? And then really prioritize managing that network and leveraging that network. No matter where you go, it's yet another opportunity to continue building that networking out and also to leverage that network. Very important. We still keep in touch with the women that we interviewed for the book, for book number 1, back in what, 2011?
11 and 12, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, we actually have created a leaders toolkit, women leaders toolkit. So if you purchase the book, that is an additional resource that's filled with lots of very tactical tips and tools too.
No, and I think there's a lot of, because we talk about, of course, when you work, you develop skills or you use skills or you have to use skills like teamwork or managing a team or the communication, but you can do that everywhere, also outside work. So I've been, for example, in Germany, I was on the school board. How do you say, it's non-paid, it's voluntary, but it does give you something for your resume. It does teach you a lot about the runnings of a school. It's not an organization, but it is an organization, but not like company. But so there's different ways to use skills that you can demonstrate then later in job interviews, or if you want to demonstrate that you have still used those skills, there's lots of opportunities also in your personal life that you can activate those skills and then use them for your benefit afterwards.
I think that so the themes that are coming
Mhm.
through for me with both of your great narratives are being open to adventure, um, learning how to quickly assimilate into the place where you are, finding your place or your niche in each one of those communities, reaching out and connecting to people and maintaining not only the connections that you have in your new location, but then also the importance of maintaining those ties back to where you're coming from or where you've previously been so that you can continually navigate the ever-changing waters of where you are and where you want to go. And the other great theme that you both seem to be talking a lot about is self-awareness and how that is really a key tool in making sure that you feel grounded and that you retain that confidence and power, inner power, to move through any of the challenges or struggles that you might face wherever you are in the world. And you, in fact, dedicate an entire chapter in one of your books to self awareness and the importance of truly knowing yourself in order to direct your career, no matter where you are in life or in the world. And if, I would love it if you could talk us through, one of you, how to start that process of getting more clear and becoming more self-aware so that we feel individually better about how all of these experiences collectively are moving us forward, even though it may seem very disjointed and non-traditional in the actual moment.
I think, and that's also what we say in the book, because self-awareness is one of the skills that we defined or found that the majority of the female expats that we interviewed had self-awareness as a very strong skill that was a very important contributor to their success in the other country and in their role. And we, as we describe it also in the book, it all starts with knowing yourself. What are your values? What do you stand for? Because if I value very much, I don't know, if for example, I don't know, name a value. If I say I want to contribute to a community, that is one of my top 5 values. If then I start working for a super hotshot consultancy that only thinks about making money and billing hours, it won't match. It won't work. It may work a month, a year, 2 years, but in the end, it won't work. So it's really important to know what your core values are. Is it, and it doesn't matter what they are, there's no right or wrong, but it's really, they are in difficult times or whenever you feel a bit lost, they are your guiding light, so to speak, when you make decisions, for example. So, for example, if you know what your values are, you can also decide, is moving to another country, is that something for me? If you're very reluctant to change and you like your own environment and, for example, your family and your friends and everything that's familiar, that is totally fine. But then maybe moving to another country, you have to think about that twice before you do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but it's just things to think about. And if you move abroad, once you are in a new country, some countries, I mean, I've moved from the Netherlands to Germany. That's neighboring countries. A lot is similar, a lot is different, but it's not like mind-blowingly different. If I would move to a country in the Middle East, well, you've moved to Japan. I mean, that's so much different than the Western culture that I grew up in, that you have to define, okay, what are the things in the new culture that I can relate to and that I'm open to and that I like to adapt to, and what are things that I say, well, no, this is a no-go. Because you'll lose yourself. And we often think if we move to another country, we have to become one of them. And yes, you want to integrate, but you shouldn't lose sight of who you are and what you stand for, because you lose yourself. If you throw everything you had and were before, and you start creating this new personality, you lose yourself. So you have to find this balance in who am I and what do I keep and what am I open to adapt and to take on board because it will enrich me. And that is what self-awareness is about. What do you like? What do you not like? What are your strengths? Because that's also part of it. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Yeah, where are my boundaries? And if you work, you'll have a different discussion about your strengths and your weaknesses than when you look at yourself in a personal life. But those are the types of topics you have to know. If you want to be self-aware, that's things you know. Yeah. And sometimes it's not easy discussions with yourself, and sometimes it might be very helpful to engage a coach, just somebody who asks you the right questions and maybe challenge you. But it's important to know what you are made of.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for bringing up this concept of losing yourself too, because that is definitely something that, excuse me, I have experienced and know that many people do experience regularly when they move from country to country, from job to job, whatever it is. And I'd even say throughout phases of life. And one of those in particular is becoming a parent and losing yourself, or feeling sometimes like you're losing yourself from the professional role that you had as a woman to transitioning into more of a parenting role as a mother. And when we as women make the choice to stay at home for a period of time to raise children, that really causes very regularly, frequently, this process of questioning and self-doubt about the choices that we've made in our lives and whether or not we can ever return to the workforce, will ever return to the workforce, still have the same value in the workforce. And especially in these COVID times, and Sapna, you and I had talked about this on a previous call, so many women are leaving the workforce because of COVID and needing to take care of children while schools are closed and while this pandemic is ongoing. And Sapna, when you and I were talking, you had mentioned that though we've made great strides in gender equality in the workforce, that we need to understand that gender equality has rapidly progressed over the span of a single generation, essentially, and that therefore it is still very fragile. I'd love for you to talk more about this concept and what actions or attitudes can or must we take in order to further support women in the workforce?
It's an interesting dilemma because we want men and women alike to be able to have choices. And we want those choices, however, not to be heavily negatively impacted due to gender roles. And gender roles, as we can all agree to, I believe, vary nation to nation. So especially in the expat community, I'm sure there's a variety of different experiences relative to this. In the US alone, I pulled some stats, Laura, after we spoke last time. The most recent stats is 5.4 million women have lost their jobs just since last February. 55% of all of the net US job losses in that time period. So that's pretty amazing. 2.1 million women have vanished from the paid labor force entirely. If you combine that with the fact that many households are led by single mothers, that's very daunting in combination. And the absolute stunning thing is in the US alone, women accounted for almost the entirety of 140,000 net job losses just in December. Huge numbers, huge numbers. Caroline and I were talking about this, and she was sharing that McKinsey just came out with research saying that this has put us 10 years behind as far as the progress we've made. And senior level women are actually 1.5 times more likely to think about downshifting their careers as their male counterparts. another staggering statistic. They're saying that in order to get women's careers back on track, it's going to take a lot of allyship. We dedicate quite a bit of time in our book to this concept of male allyship and also women supporting other women. This is a key trigger and lever that we can pull. In the home front, another opportunity where male allyship or partner allyship, women take on so much more of the household work. And of course, those statistics and numbers, if you will, vary nation to nation, but the theme remains the same, which is women on average do 2 to 3 times more of the household work and responsibilities, even when both partners are working, if it is a 2-partner home. So the things we can do are pretty expansive. From an organizational standpoint, there's a variety of things. Caroline, do you want to perhaps share some of what Bayer is doing?
Yeah, it's because it has been challenging times. We all know that, and I have many female colleagues who have small children at home, and a working husband, and who had to do and their jobs and the homeschooling and the cooking and everything. So they were, by the time it was summer, they were exhausted and they barely recovered. And then we went in the second lockdown. So I'm really happy, I must say, that my kids are 18 and 20, so they're self-sufficient, because that takes a lot of work away in that sense. But of course, within our organization, we have a lot of working mothers, and recognizing that it is a tough situation for everybody, but them in particular. And as an organization, there's only so much you can do. I mean, I can't, the children are there, the homeschooling is a fact, the work is a fact, so there's little room for maneuvering. But we have done a lot around flexible working times, that we said we don't care when you do the work, you can spread it out throughout the day, in the evenings, in the weekends. We recognize that productivity may be a bit less than we're used to. If you need to take a break or longer break, 1-2 hours in the morning or in the afternoon, because you have to take care of your children or the homeschooling, that is fine too. Then you're just out of office and you pick up afterwards. So we've worked around the topic of flexible working hours. Our managers are very much engaged with their teams, not only the women, but talking with them about how they're doing. We do a lot of virtual coffees, virtual meetings, virtual aperos, virtual Friday night drinks, etc. So we put a lot of emphasis on staying connected with the team. We also encourage women who are struggling to say it, to share it, because if you don't share, nobody can help you. We have an employee assistance program where employees can get support from professionals like psychologists or coaches, if they have problems, and that's not only work related, cannot be private, but they have the support of a coach. And within our organization, we do workshops around resilience, positive mindsets. We have every week we have several short programs on yoga, stretching, meditation. So we take care of the physical and the mental well-being. And we hope that with the total, we can take a bit of relief for everybody in this situation, but the women in particular.
Yeah, and Laura, for those folks that are not part of a larger organization, I believe that there are certain things that we can do too, right, as an individual person. So yes, of course, there needs to be legal changes, institutional changes, organizational changes. And I believe that a lot of the strong employers and nations are moving in that direction. But what can we do? I believe there's a few things. One, suspend your internal judge, right? These are tough times, and sometimes tough times, actually more often than not, are going to call for tough measures, for extreme measures. And this kind of goes to that idea of conscious imbalance. If for some reason you do need to step out of your current role, whatever that might be, or switch it up, or create new balances and boundaries, part-time, quarter time, in person, not in person, whatever it might be, suspend that internal judge and really embrace this idea of conscious imbalance.
I'm going to pause you right there, Sapna. Talk
Yeah.
about conscious imbalance. I know that it's detailed in your book and it is such an incredible concept. I really would love for you to just take a minute to talk about that and define it. And then please continue with your practical steps and tips.
Sure, absolutely. 4 competencies rose to the top when we interviewed and really looked at data that only applied to female senior level expats. And conscious imbalance was one of them. And what it came down to is, Laura, if I was to ask you to share with me one of your happiest vacation memories, can you share something? What would it be?
Sure. We, during TET of, I think it was 2019, or 2017, we're able to get out of Vietnam and fly to Fiji. So the whole family went to Fiji for a week and it was wonderful.
That sounds amazing. I wish I could have come.
Direct flights from California.
While you were in Fiji, tell me just a couple things you did during the day.
The greatest thing about Fiji, honestly, was the quick access to the beautiful reefs, and the snorkeling that we did was some of the best underwater exploration that we have had in our lives, better even than a lot of the scuba diving that we've done. And it was great to be able to do that with our kids.
Thank you. And, you know, I believe all of us, when we describe that favorite vacation, for example, it's rare that we say, I was in Fiji on the beach, and guess what? I was able to sit there with my laptop and work from 9 to 5. They
Right.
tend to be very pure, right? They're these pure moments. And what we realized very quickly when we started aggregating information is that there is the majority of senior level women that often pointed to that project they were driving to the finish where they worked around the clock for a year. And yet it was so rewarding, so energizing. There was such great success. And we started to notice another thing. At a certain point, they made it very conscious and they rebalanced the scales. So there's been a lot of talk around work-life balance or work-life fit, or what does this mean? At the end of the day, it's one life and it's in our hands to constantly rebalance. And in order to effectively rebalance, we need to lead with purpose and we need to suspend that internal judge. So that's the real skinny. But I hope that answers your question. Does that clarify
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Well, really that there is not a work-life balance, but that you choose at different times in your life to really be focused on and invest all of your energy in whatever it is that at that particular moment or in that particular place and time is the thing that needs to accomplish your next goal, or that is what is best for you at that time. So whether it's, like you said, deriving all of your energy and similarly investing all of your energy into a work project, or if it is choosing to put that aside and really focus in on family or personal health or whatever it is that is the opposite, it's not this constant equilibrium, but a flow that you are choosing to direct.
Yep, you've got it. That's it. And then, of course, in doing that, communicate your boundaries and your parameters clearly. That's something all women can do. I believe oftentimes what I've seen through various executives I've coached is folks will choose to leave, whatever it might be, fill in the blank, an organization, a job, perhaps even move back home, whatever home might be if you're an expat, versus really saying, here's what I need in order to be successful with where I am. So really communicating those boundaries and parameters clearly, which means, again, self-awareness, you need to know what they are. And then identifying micro rituals. So this is going to end at some point, right? This COVID scenario. But what type of rituals can you adopt that are very small, simple things that you can incorporate into your daily life to sustain your energy during this tough period. And it has been a tough period. I'll share, among the folks that I've been coaching, there is such a need and request and desire for resiliency support, for optimism. We do a lot with this idea of conscious optimism and tools and techniques and how they can incorporate that into their daily lives, and then perhaps even take it back to their teams, their organizations, their families. And I am so glad you brought up self-awareness first, because all of this, what we can do today to stop this backward slide and get women in leadership moving in the right direction is, of course, what Caroline shared, and then also what we can do personally.
I love that both of you, and Caroline, thank you so much for sharing that experience with Bear, because it gives me great hope and courage to know that those big companies and corporations worldwide are starting to recognize that it's not something to be ashamed of to say that you're a parent, but to be open and communicate your needs, and that companies are taking into consideration the whole person, not just the time that you are spending at work, but also how your life affects your work, and vice versa. So it's really encouraging to know that those leaders in the big corporate world are starting to take note of people as the whole person, not just the employee. And Sapna, I love this concept of allyship, and that when you're talking about communicating, that getting out there and helping each other, that networking is not just about going out and talking about what you have in common, but figuring out really how we can each help each other move forward in work, move forward in life, and move great concepts forward. So fitting, of course, then, that both of you were here for this great conversation and we're able to talk about your allyship and how that has really played out over the last 11 years for the two of you.
Yes, it has.
Well, and on that great note, I'd love to ask each of you if there is one piece of advice, one thing that you'd like to make sure that everybody hears or takes away today.
Okay, Caroline, what was the quote that we put at the end of our final chapter? Do you remember? See, I grabbed the book. I bet you that would be really good advice.
I don't know by heart. I have to.
Oh, shoot. Can't seem to find it. I will tell you one piece of advice without a quote, which is...
Your time is now. Worldly women, your time is now. Oh, they here. There. Who you are today is a reflection of your experience. Who you will be tomorrow will depend on the experience you are yet to choose.
Yeah. And the add-on I would say is the idea of legacy. At the end of your life, if you were to look back, you don't want to be saying, what if? You want to be saying, I did.
Wow. Thank you both so much. Such an inspiring talk from both of you. All of the things that you've accomplished both individually and together are incredible. And I really, as a person who, as a woman who has lived overseas and has doubted myself and what all these experiences are leading to and towards, I really appreciate the books that you have written and put out there, and the extra encouragement that your words and that your experiences are giving other women. So thank you both for that.
My pleasure. Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
How else can people get in touch with you if they have questions to follow up?
LinkedIn, Caroline Kersten. That's the easiest way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Same for you, Sapna?
Yeah.
Yep, LinkedIn is perfect. Yeah, we have a Leverage HR LinkedIn, but then you can just look me up, Sapna Welsh. I've decided I might be the only Sapna Welsh, even at a global level.
It is a unique combination of names. Yeah.
And of course, our website, leveragehr.com, there's a contact opportunity there as well.
Well, thank you again, both, for this incredible conversation. And I look forward to being in touch and to continuing to see where both of you go in your next steps.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And you definitely look me up when you get back this side. Stay
Will
safe.
do. Thank you both.
Bye
Bye.
bye.